Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. Once again, tasting with Ron and Loreen, or...
New name yet to be determined.
New name to be determined. We had a bunch of suggestions.
We did have a few.
I don't know if you liked any of them.
We haven't discussed it yet, so we can move on to a different topic. Well, we're trying wine tonight, obviously. 3.
All right, so today we did we had a staff meeting and did a little wine training as we try to do when we get together and talk to staff. And one of the things we wanted to do was taste through different vintages of similar wines so that we could sort of talk about what happens as wines age, and also a little bit about vintage variation and why that may or may not be important to some people. So that's what we did today with staff. So we thought we'd just sort of redo that here. So we've got 3 wines. We've got a 2016, 2017, and 2019 Cotes du Rhone. So Southern Rhone Valley, Grenache dominated. They're all 3 slightly different blends. They're all in about the same price point. So the first one is the 2016 Andelaroche Cotes du Rhone. It is $14.99. Then we've got the Charles Thomas Cotes du Rhone at $13.99. And then we've got the Pierre Amadou Cotes du Rhone 2019 at $14.99. So pretty similar price points, different vintages. So
for those who are familiar or aren't familiar with Rhone wines, I often will call them, well, they're often GSM. So if you hear the term GSM, that stands for Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre. The wines we're tasting tonight, I have a Grenache, and actually in order to in Cotes du Rhone, they are required to be at least 30% Grenache in the final product. There are 21 other grapes that are allowed, primarily Syrah and Mourvedre, a lot of Carignan, and then a few other... Carignan, I'm sorry. Sorry. I know somebody with that last name. Apologies. Carignan.
Not Nancy Kerrigan.
No, probably not.
She was the skater.
Oh, yes. I don't know her.
Who got kneecapped by...
Yes, I don't know. I know who she is. I do not know her personally. Anyway, 21 other grapes, or 21 grapes.
Is that just for the base Cotes du Rhone? So what if it's Cotes du Rhone, Village?
That is in the base region, and of course that doesn't have any, I did not talk at all about whites, so that's reds solely. Yeah. So, moving on to, as Ron said, the first wine, which is the 2016 Andelaroche. This is 60% Grenache, 30% Syrah, and 10% Carignan. We did taste this earlier, so I have a few notes written down from what I had, as well as the tasting notes from the distributor.
And they've now been open for, let's see, it's 6:30. We opened them probably about, well, actually I opened them early. I opened them before noon. I opened them about 11:30. And I did a poor man decant. I just basically took the whole bottle, dumped it into a big pitcher, and then put it back into the bottle so that you just sort of aerate it early. But they've been open, I mean, inexpensive wines, open now. They were sealed. We have a vacuum sealer at the shop. So they're vacuum sealed for the past few hours.
And again, I don't think we introduced ourselves. God, we're terrible at that.
We're terrible.
Loreen and Ron. I own Vino Latte.
Well, I said tasting with Ron and Loreen.
Oh, yeah, you did. We own Vino Latte in Wausau, Wisconsin. I own Vino Latte in Wausau, Wisconsin. And it's flipped around, so I'm messing with it.
I know, you're jing-jangling it, though.
Sorry. And Ron is my husband and by default owner, but really, as we talked about today in the staff meeting, he just lifts stuff, some stuff, and fixes things for us. He's not really...
As I said, my new tagline is I lift things, fix things, and drink things.
All right. He's also the owner's husband, which I like that tagline better. So, it's been open. I think in the last, since we tried it 4 hours ago, it's
opened up a lot.
A lot. It's actually much more expressive. I was concerned when I first tasted it. I wasn't getting a ton. I got cinnamon initially and a little cherry. I'm actually getting licorice now, and I don't remember getting any licorice earlier. So
you're probably not going to be able to see this exceptionally well. I'll see if I can't get it to focus once we start comparing. What happens with wine as it ages is tannin, which comes from the skins and seeds, softens. So it sort of coalesces, makes bigger compounds of tannins, and they settle out and they become sediment. Fruit drops off, and all of the, as it's called, tertiary, or the third type of characteristics develop, those from aging in the bottle. And so you have less fruit in an older wine. It's sort of a brownish, not brown, brick red.
It starts to become brown. It goes towards brown. So.
In color. And it just becomes, you get, generally speaking, less fruit and more old world or more leather and herbal and other characteristics. And that's why we taste them like this. You probably on video you won't be able to see quite the color variations, but.
So again, we've had it open for 4 hours. On the palate, it is not as, the flavor stayed much the same, only I think I'm getting a little bit more fruit, which is odd. Maybe, well, it's just opening, and a little less hay. On all 3 of these, I got a little hay or a little silage, a little earthiness to it. I'm probably getting a little bit less. This wine is a drink now wine. I don't like my wines aged. This is really borderline. I don't know if this is my favorite because I don't like the age in it.
Right. She likes more fruit forward.
Yes.
Fruit driven wines.
I do. And that's not true. I don't like it when the fruit starts falling out. So although this may have been 4 years ago, it may have been my style. Now it is no longer.
Okay. Yeah, I get that baking spice. There's a little bit of rustic, a little rustic funk, a little earth terroir.
Silage, as I called it. Dusty, little dusty silage.
Yeah, see, silage I sort of equate to like being in a barn or something, and I don't quite get that.
I have been in a barn a number of times, and I think of that more as animal, like those animal smells.
Right, so silage...
This is more, to me, what the animals ate.
And maybe in my mind, because that's where I smell silage, is like in a barn, it sort of combines and becomes that all aroma. So,
got it.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
I get the hay that's, I completely got silage now. Like when we're feeding, I don't do it anymore. I actually never really did it, but I was there when it was done. Feeding the cows, that's the way it smells. On the bottom, to me.
Yeah, and there's a little leather.
Yes. So, for the fact that it is...
6? Going on 6 years
no,
old?
it's older than that. It's 8 years
sorry,
old.
8 years old.
It's 8 years old.
7 years old, 8 years old.
It's not bad.
No, I think it's held up well. So the first 2 wines are both imported by Fran Casella. We've talked about Fran before. We think, you told them what the blend was, right?
I did tell them the blend.
Yeah, Grenache, Syrah, Carignan. We think what happened was there's maybe like a label change. So they're both produced by the same overall producer from obviously different vineyards. And the 2 are slightly different blend.
Yes.
Go ahead and move on to the second one.
All right, I am moving on to the second one. The Cotes du Rhone, Charles Thomas. I don't know if you can see that or not. 2017. I do have a dump bucket over here if you'd like to dump. And we'll talk a little bit about this one. So this one, again, it has to be 30% Grenache, and this one is 65% Grenache, 30% Syrah, and 5% Marselan. Marselan is a little unusual grape. It was first bred in 1961 in France near the town of Marselan, hence where it got its name. It is still grown today. It is primarily a blending grape, and interestingly, it's being experimented with and used in China for their wine.
Did you tell them what it was a cross of?
Oh, I did not say that it's a cross between Cab and Grenache. And again, 1960.
Cabernet Sauvignon and Grenache. So it's a cross.
Young, relatively young. Only been around since 1961. I like to think 1961 is young. So, 2017. When we tried this one earlier, again, I got the cherry and the earthiness. I'm still getting that. I am not getting any baking spice or any cinnamon in the nose of this one.
Yeah, there's actually less fruit on this.
Yeah, but it's on the palate. It's a little bit more pleasant to me than I thought that the Anne de la Roche. And I don't mean that the other one was unpleasant. This just it just got a little more going on, a little more expressive, a little fuller. Could be the age.
It's a little brighter.
Interestingly, one of the reasons we did this is we wanted to talk about vintages with staff, and Ron printed a vintage sheet, and not that you will see this, certainly not, but we'll talk about vintage right now. And
so a lot of people think, so we've had customers come into the shop and ask us about vintages. Can you get a whatever year of this wine? And most oftentimes it's because they see some press in a publication which prompts them to say, oh, I really want to try the, let's say 2018 whatever wine it is. By the time that press is hit, by the time that's like getting the words getting out there about that wine, chances are the wine's already been in the market, the new vintage might be out, and an old vintage, or that vintage that they're seeking, may be not even available through a distributor. With that in mind, the way that I look at it is vintages come and go. Obviously, inherently, that's what they do, right? Years come and go. And unless you are a collector, vintages mean less than a quality producer. If you're just vintage hunting, then you should probably think way ahead of it, be ahead of the game, read the harvest reports and read all the stuff about the different regions as the season's going along, so you can say, this is gonna be a really good year, and then keep that in mind so that a year and a half or 2 years later, when those wines hit the market, you can buy that vintage. Vintage hunting is something that takes time, effort, discipline, because you have to think about the vintage while the grapes are being grown and pay attention, and then remember that so that in a year and a half, 2 years when they hit the market, or longer, depending on what the wines are, if they're aged in bottle or in barrel for 18 months, that's a year and a half, then they're in bottle for another length of time. So
you can get vintage charts online too that will tell you a little bit, so you don't have to remember it.
Yeah, except the vintage charts aren't done until the vintage is over.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
But if it's in bottle and it's been aging in bottle,
yes,
it's available. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, question, and I don't know if this is accurate or not,
ahead.
But if it's a warmer, hotter vintage, does that mean that the grapes are often better versus a cooler vintage? Like when I read through press, is that accurate statement, or is that really not correct?
So the short answer is it depends. Also, better is a relative term. So if you listen to winemakers, the vintages, meaning the years, the growing seasons that are the best for them are even, consistent, moderate temperatures throughout. And if you're gonna get heat spikes, maybe a little bit warm towards the end of it, so you boost the sugars up.
At harvest.
At harvest, close to harvest. But also it's nice to keep them cool, because even at harvest, the sugars don't develop so fast, so you're not rushing to get them off the vine. You're letting them, you get a lot of hang time, because there's other things that come along with just being on the vine for a really long time.
So basically, vintage, and what is going to make a vintage better or worse, depending on your perspective, is what is happening solely in the weather.
Pretty much solely in the weather.
The ground doesn't matter.
Well,
other than it might warm up and keep the plants warm with the sunlight. And,
right. Yeah.
But that's all weather.
It's weather. It's all weather. I mean, the soil is the same, whether it's good weather or bad weather. Where it's planted is, and the altitude. So it's really weather dominant. So if you want to buy some wines in the future, look up Napa Valley 2023. Almost universally, it is being hailed as one of the absolute best vintages as of late. It was cool, started off even, no major heat, nothing weird, no weird early spring frosts or heavy rain or hail that would create shatter in the grape bunches where the grapes don't get evenly formed, or you don't have good berry set. And then they had a lot of hang time. There was just no rushing. There was a great, I should maybe link it in the comments here. There's a great little video from SOM TV or something where they're talking about it with a couple of winemakers.
Is that the one I watched?
Yep. Yeah, I shared it on we've got an internal employee Facebook page. And so that's a great vintage if you want to buy Napa and lay it down for a long time. But anyway, going back, you can get a vintage chart. You're not gonna be able to read this, but I'm gonna show it to you. Just Google vintage chart, Wine Spectator. I think this is Wine Spectator. No, this is Wine Enthusiast vintage chart. And it will go back, this one goes back all the way to
I thought it was 1996 or 1993.
1996, all the way through 2021. And this is a 2023 vintage report. So this is getting published in 2023, and they only go back to 2021 because...
2023. It only goes back to 2023.
Only goes back to 2021.
Oh.
So that's what I say. It's published in 2023, but the most recent vintage that they rate is 2021.
You actually said this is 2025, so you misspoke.
I didn't, but that's okay. It's on tape.
It's on tape.
It's on tape. It's a 2023 vintage chart. It only goes back, the most recent year is 2021.
So, moving on to the wine again. Again, I get that right cherry. Plum is a very common characteristic. I don't get a lot of plum in this. I actually don't pick up plum a lot in general. I don't get a lot of spice in this one. I know the earlier one I said I got cinnamon. I'm not getting as much spice. But the mouthfeel is grippier, not necessarily tannin, but it feels stickier in my mouth.
Faster finish. Brighter overall, but the finish doesn't linger like it did on the 16.
I agree. So I probably prefer this one a little bit more, but again, pretty old wine.
Yeah, nice. 14 bucks.
14 bucks.
So what I often say when you're talking about vintages, people come and vintage hunt, rather than look for a certain vintage, find producers that you like, or regions, especially producers, because a good producer is going to produce a quality wine. I mean, I won't say anybody, but most people in a really good year, most people can make good wine. It's in the challenging years where the skill and craftsmanship of a winemaker really shows through. So instead of vintage hunting, find a quality producer and follow them.
We're going to move on to the next one. This is a 2019 Pierre Amadou. I'm sure you can't read that. I apologize.
I'd be able to.
Again, Cotes du Rhone. And we will give this one a whirl. So this one is also Grenache. And unfortunately, I don't have my glasses on.
80% Grenache, 20% Syrah.
So I talked earlier, I mentioned GSM, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. Very common blends in Rhone wine. And this one only has the two, of course. So we actually, in looking, all three that we're trying are Grenache, Syrah, and then this is the only one that doesn't have a third grape in it.
And that's Marcelin and then Mourvedre, the other one?
Marcelin and Carignan.
Carignan. Did it say how, like, any of them were produced as far as oak or anything?
This one doesn't, these two did not. This one, I don't think there's a lot of oak. Certainly it doesn't taste like there's
generally
oak.
Speaking, there's not a lot.
This one does mention a little bit.
Yeah, hand-picked, traditionally vinified, aged 100% in stainless steel vats.
Wow. So, first of all, acidity. That's very acidic. The color on this one is so different. I know you can't see it, but the other two, especially the first one, looked like there was a lot of sediment in it. And actually, that's one of the things that our staff commented on, that it looked cloudier, almost unfiltered and fine. I don't know if it is. This one is much cleaner looking, much brighter looking, a little bit probably winemaking, but I'm sure the fact that it's 2 or 3 years old, or newer, younger.
So this says drink in its youth, after 2 years, or within 5 years with grilled poultry or fish. So we're at the 5-year mark.
We're right there.
This thing has a lot of life.
It has a lot of life, but it's not going to get any better. So that's one thing. Correct. When we talk about drink now or you know, whatever, this is not going to get better with age. This is going to get worse even. I mean, maybe it's got another year or two, but it's not going to get better. It's at its peak. So I think it's peaking.
It's probably at its peak, but it's going to hold its peak for a while.
Well, it might hold,
yeah.
yes. Yeah. So.
And if you like those, you know, tertiary characteristics, in a couple of years, this is going to have that. And because we're at, what, 5 years of age? Mm-hmm. And
7 and 8.
8 years of age. Mm-hmm. So this one's already at 5. When this one hits 8, this one already seems like it has more structure, more acidity. All of those things go to ageability.
Or it might become this.
Well, it's going to move in that direction, of course,
yes.
But it's not going to become that. I think this one's going to hold longer.
A little longer.
Yeah.
It is certainly more acidic. It's got a lot of bright fruit. Definitely has the cherry, licorice in this one. maybe the other, I don't remember which one I commented on licorice. I think it was the first one. That actually was almost like a black licorice. This is a red licorice. So, you know, Ron and I always mention that if we talk a lot about a wine and we have a lot to say, it's an indication of a quality wine, even if you don't like it. And I kind of think about that. I think I said the most between the 16 and the 17. I think I said a little more about the 16. So I think I was liking the 16 a little bit more. Now, if you go to the vintage chart, it does say that the 2016 in Rhone, I think it was a 99-point year.
That was Wine Spectator.
In the vintage chart.
Yep, so this is...
Oh, we didn't talk about that.
I printed off Wine Spectator. So 2016 vintage, they rated as 99 points. So that's generically, and again, they're looking back at that. And we have an example. There's no, it's not foolproof. They can be wrong, or in hindsight, it could be like, yeah, you know, we originally, the great one that everybody talks about was 97 and 98 in Napa Valley. 97 people.
Not everybody, just some of the geeky people.
Well, in the press.
Okay.
I mean, the press raved about 97s. They were big and opulent and whatever. And then 98 was a cooler vintage. And what happened was, over the long run, the 97s started to fall off faster. And the 98s actually held and stuck, probably because it was a cooler vintage. Acidity is a little bit higher in cooler vintages, and acidity is one of those things that's imperative for ageability. A
little more structured.
A little more structure, exactly. That's why I think this one could hold a little bit better.
And when we had the 97 and then the 98, and there was one particular winery, and we won't talk about it. I actually thought 10 years later, this is a $100 wine in 1997. That's a pricey wine. I thought that 10 years later, in 2007, it was starting to already lose its vibrancy. The 98, which we also had at that time, was holding on to that vibrancy. Granted, it was a year younger, but that should not have made that much of a difference.
So Wine Spectator for vintages gave 2016 99 points, gave 2017 92 points, and gave 2019 94 points. If I can find it in the tiny print on the Wine Enthusiast.
It's like this big. It's tiny.
It's tiny. Southern Rhone. Southern Rhone Reds, Wine Enthusiast gave 2016 99 points.
Same as Wine Spectator.
Gave 2017 94 points.
92 from Wine Spectator.
And gave 2019 94 points.
Same as Wine Spectator. So interesting. Not surprising. All right. Anything else you want to say about vintages?
So, Napa Valley Cabernet, 1997, the vintage, not a wine, but the vintage, they gave 96 points. 1998, they gave 85 points.
Wow.
That's the stark difference at the time when the vintages were rated.
So they don't change their ratings?
They don't, no. And I'm sure that universally, maybe that lined up with the wines, but some of the wines, as we experienced, the 98s were drinking better than the 97s after a period of time.
Yeah, but interesting. So vintages are interesting. Pay attention to them, but don't let it rule what you're going to drink.
Yeah, don't live and die by a vintage chart.
So, anything else you want to say about the End of La Roche? I'm sorry, the Pierre Amadou. Sorry.
No, I think it's good. I think it's bright. I think it's... Wine Advocate gave it 88 to 90 points.
But that wasn't
that's
this, that was, don't ignore that,
I'm sorry, ignore that.
1 year it gave it that, not this year, so.
Yeah. I would say, it's a nice wine. All of them are nice wines.
All of them are good.
And this is the thing is that, so this is what they would refer to as a vertical tasting, where you're tasting 3 different vintages. A true vertical would be 3 or more vintages of the same exact wine, not of 3 different wines. But doing this is the way you learn. And again, you know, you're talking 15, we've got what, $45, $47 worth of wine open. When you get together with a group of people and you do this from an educational standpoint, the only way you're gonna actually truly learn and see what happens over time is to do something like this. It's a great little, fun little thing to do.
It is.
It is.
So, I think that's all for tonight.
Which one are you gonna drink?
I'm going on to white. Champagne, here I come.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have anything else to say. Check out these wines. See if you can go to your favorite little wine store and find different vintages of similar wines or same wines, same region.
It might be hard to find 2016 and 2017, so good luck. We only have a few of these left. So.
Yeah, but it's cool to do.
It is fun to do, yeah.
And we got to reorder this one. This is the last bottle of this on the shelf. And
we know staff liked it. So
yeah,
I thought there was one left because Jen said she was going to buy it.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. Oh.
You can use Jen's name. We have people who actually work for us, and those people have names.
Oops. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a great whatever it is. I'm not sure when this is going to hit your feed, but thanks for joining us. And cheers. Enjoy.
Like us. Thank you.
Like, thumbs up, share, all of those things. I'm not really big on all the YouTube vernacular, but just do it. That's cheers. Nike. Just do it. Cheers.
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 You know you're supposed to take a drink after you cheers.
I did.
I know, but even if you should always take a drink. There's people who toast, they don't cheers. You're supposed to take a drink and look in the person's eyes.
They're losers.
Anyway. All right.
All right.